Hey guys, what's up? MiataMods here. Today I'm going to replace my big ugly airbox with my own do-it-yourself cold air intake. I don't think it's much of a performance mod because you will gain a few horsepower at best, but it looks cool and it sounds great, so that's good enough for me. Now I know that there are a lot of companies that sell cold air intake kits, but they can be pretty expensive, sometimes even a few $100s. So building your own is a lot cheaper and much more fun, right? Before I start working on my new air intake, I'm going to remove the old airbox and air duct first. Let's get the car inside. There we go. Open up the hood and start removing these 4 10mm nuts at the back of the airflow meter, or AFM in short. I'm going to use my awesome ice cube tray to keep track of all the bolts, nuts and screws. Now you can remove these 10mm bolts and this bracket. I'm also going to remove this Afm connector. Now whatever you do, do not touch these screws. If unscrewed, the connector socket may pull away the internal wiring of the Afm and it will no longer work. Just get a flathead screwdriver and push these metal clips to the side. After that you can remove the connector. Like that. Pull the AFM a bit forward and move it out of the way. The next step is removing this air duct. Remove this 10mm bolt and with the same 10mm socket you can loosen this clamp down here. Use an extension if you have one. And now for the airbox. Remove these two 12mm bolts on the side and this 12mm nut. After you're done, you can remove the airbox. Underneath the airbox is this mounting bracket. Remove these two 10mm bolts to remove the mounting bracket as well. I have to relocate my alarm horn and diagnostics plug, so I will have enough room for my air intake. As you can see, the diagnostic plug is already loosened, so I don't need to worry about that. Removing the alarm horn is pretty simple. I just need to remove this 10mm bolt on the side and then I can take it out of its mounting bracket. I'm removing this mounting bracket as well, and to do that I need to remove these two screws with a Phillips head screwdriver. Now look at all this room for my new air intake. Let me show you all the parts that I'm going to use for the new air intake. The airflow meter has a square port, so to connect it to the intake hose you need an adapter plate like this. I also got a new AFM gasket and a pot filter. Furthermore, I got some small mounting hardware, 2 90-degree silicone hoses, 2 aluminium connectors, 4 hose clamps and my very own heat shield / mounting bracket. Because the outer diameter of this adapter plate is right around 76mm, I've bought some silicone hoses and a pot filter with an inner diameter of 76mm. Using the same size will optimize the airflow. You may have seen it already on my social media, but in the past week my buddy Dylan and I have been working on this heat shield / mounting bracket, and I think the end result is awesome. I'm not going to show you the whole building process, but I will tell you how we made it so you can build one yourself. We first made a template out of cardboard. Cardboard can be easily cut down to size and bent into shape, and the final result was traced onto a metal sheet. After the metal sheet was cut down to size, we added 2 45-degree bends. We then cut out these 2 notches so it would fit over these 2 sidewalls, and we drilled 2 holes so we could use these 2 original bolt holes. The metal pieces we cut out were used to make these brackets and we secured it with some rivets. After that I used some sandpaper to rough up the surface. I then cleaned it and added 4 coats of high temperature paint. As a final step I used an oven to bake the paint and this is the end result. Check out the video description for all the information about the parts, the measurement of the heat shield / mounting bracket and other useful information. I'm going to install it with the 2 original 10mm bolts that came with the Airbox mounting bracket. The next step is to install the adapter plate with the new stainless steel hardware. And then we're going to install the AFM, but first I'm going to twist it a 1/4 turn. And then we add the new gasket. For this I'm going to use some new stainless steel hardware as well. As you can see, I decided to rotate the AFM a 1/4 turn. At first I thought it looked a bit funny, but I actually really like it because the AFM is less visible this way and it gives a lot more room to work with. Now I know that some of you guys just connect the filter onto the AFM directly, but come on guys. That's a hot air intake and we're trying to make a cold air intake. So we start with the silicone hoses. I've already cut them down to size, but here's a little tip for cutting a silicone hose. Use a hose clamp to create a cutting guide and then cut the hose clamp with a sharp knife right along the edge of the clamp, like so. And then eventually you can push it in and then you can start cutting and use the hose clamp as a guide. See? After that you will have a pretty good straight cut. Now we can add the first hose and a hose clamp. Don't tighten it all the way, but leave a little bit of room so you can move around when you're installing the other parts. Then we can install the first connector. And after that, a second hose clamp and the second hose. And then another hose clamp. Tighten the hose clamps until they're snug. Then we can add our second connector and a second hose clamp. And the last step is the pot filter. It's a pretty good fit, but my big ass air filter is hitting on that mounting point. I don't know if you can see it. Yes, over there. So I'm going to remove that one. And that's the mounting bracket. Alright, well, if you did a good job with cutting the hoses, it should look something like this. And I really like the fitment. As you can see, I've got a little bit of room right here. This is a really sturdy construction, and this hose is resting on the top mount. So yeah, the filter cannot move a lot and it is not hitting this piece over here, so it can move freely. So I'm going to tighten all the hose clamps and then continue with the project. Yeah, okay, it fits. So all the hose clamps are tightened and this is not going anywhere. I reconnected the AFM and I put back the diagnostic plug. The only thing is my alarm horn. I couldn't find that place for that. So I zip tied it onto this bracket right here, and I'll leave it like this and find another place another time. So that is it for the install. I really like how it looks. It looks really clean. This is what I took out of it. So the old Airbox, Air Duct, and some other pieces and brackets, nuts and bolts. So yeah, that's out. And I wanted to show you guys something, because I did bought this thing, but as you can see, this hose has too tight of a bend, so I wouldn't fit my air filter if I would use this one. So that's why I had to use two 90-degree bends. But if you can find something like this with a little bit more space between the holes, you can use this, and then the install is even cheaper because you do not need these two hose clamps and the connector. So that is it. I'm going to close the hood, take a shower, and then try it out. Want one of those? Check out MiataMods.net. Yes. Here we go. I think the camera doesn't do it justice because it sounds so badass. And the best thing is, when you're cruising you don't hear it, but when you floor it, it roars. I don't know if my car is any faster, but it sure sounds faster. I want to end this video with a couple of pointers. This setup cost me about €100 in total, so that's a lot cheaper than any kit you can get from a company. I was too lazy to make a mount for the filter, and this is the result. So it's a good idea to make a mounting bracket for your filter as well. As you can see here, I also did that, and now it's really sturdy, no more scratches. I think you can fit this setup if you have a brake stopper. If you have an engine damper, you can still fit this setup, but you have to make a hole in the heat shield. If you have a strut brace, it's not going to fit, obviously. If I would do this job again, I would make the heat shield a little bit longer and a bit higher, so it would block the heat a little bit better. A guy named Josh Miata said that it's not a good idea to rotate the AFM. I found some conflicting info about that topic online, but my car runs just fine, so I guess it's not a big deal. So that's it, guys. Shout out to my buddy Dylan for helping me with my heat shield / mounting bracket. I love this mod, and this is definitely something you should do to your Miata. If you find this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below. The tools and parts you'll need for this job are in the video description, as well as my social media links. If you haven't subscribed already, click on the MiataMods logo below. And don't forget to turn on notifications. For more MiataMods videos, click here. Thanks for watching. Bye guys. Johan and Dylan.